This next one, you're going to work on layers. So open Photoshop. You're also going to find a folder called PS Layers. And in this folder, you're going to find 4 different Photoshop files. You can open them in different ways. If you highlight all of them, either by clicking and dragging or by using Control A, it selects all of them to open at once. You can either right click and open. If you don't already have anything opened in Photoshop, you can simply drag them in, which is the best option. Now, this new version is asking whether you want to import frequently used assets. I'm not going to check Don't Show again because there might be a time that I want to use that. But for right now, I'm just going to hit cancel on each of those because I don't want them. And you'll see what you have here is a large red square, a blue circle, a green triangle, and a pink heart. And they progressively get smaller each one. Now that these are open, I want you to go ahead and set up your workspace. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to drag Photoshop over to one half of your screen. I don't care whether it's your right or left side. But if you drag it all the way over to the side, notice how it lines it up to where it fills half of your screen. Do the same thing with your browser so that you can view this instructional video on one side and follow along on the other side. A couple of things about YouTube when you open it up. If you want to resize it to fit that space better, you can Control plus and it will make it bigger. You can Control minus to make it smaller. Control 0 sets it back to the normal default size. Here you have settings, so you can change the quality up to 1080p, which will make the quality of it better. And then you can also you can try the CC for the closed caption, although I can't promise you that those will be 100% accurate because I don't put in text. It tries to decipher what I say. So that is up to you. Okay. I'm going to make this go back full screen though so that you can see everything better. So now what I want you to do is actually arrange your Photoshop workspace. And you're going to do that under the Window menu, Arrange, and I want you to choose 2 up vertical. Whoops. Let's try that again. Window, Works, Arrange, 2 up vertical. There we go. Okay. Now, it moves things to one side or the other. What I want to do though is I want the red square on a side all by itself. And notice that I can move it around and it gets that big blue box around it when it figures that I want to drop it there. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, you don't actually need all of these to be huge. So because you have a limited workspace, notice that you can rearrange that as well. The tool that we're going to be using here the most, besides our Layers panel, is going to be the Move tool. And that is this little 4-sided arrow up at the top. And the keyboard shortcut to get to the Move tool is V for your information. Now, with the Move tool, you've got different things up here that you can select depending on what you have selected on your screen. Right now, we want to make sure that this little auto select is checked. And the reason is it makes it so that you don't have to click on a layer first before you select the item. And I'll show you an example once we get some items together. Here we have the ability to show transform controls. I don't like to see those unless I'm actually transforming something, so I keep that unchecked. This will allow us to align things here, and we'll do that in a little bit. So we're going to start with our pink hearts here. And if yours is not up in the front, I want you to notice that you have this double arrow here, which allows you to choose from between all of the files that we have open. So we're going to start with pink heart. And with the move tool, we're simply going to click on it and drag it and drop it over here on the rectangle. And like I said, all of those are different sizes. So the pink heart was the smallest. Because I have this auto select checked, whatever I click on allows me to move it. Okay, so I can click on that and move it. Notice that it is a layer. So when I click on that, it selects that layer. When I click on the rectangle, it selects that layer. Notice the history panel up here. It records every single thing that I do. Okay, so even if I come over here and I click and drag a second heart over, you can see drag layer. If I drag a third one over, same thing, drag layer. And it has a different layer for each of those hearts. And again, because of the auto select, it is allowing me to move those items anywhere just by clicking and dragging. If I deselect that, if I have it unchecked, now notice that if I try to click on this heart here, it doesn't move. The one at the bottom does, because that is the layer that I have selected. So if I want to move this one, I would have to come up here and change the layer so that I could move it. That's why auto select, having it checked, makes things easier for us. So now let's go to the green triangle. Again, with the move tool, I'm going to click and drag to add that to here. Notice my layers at the top. It says that this is polygon 1. And again, with the auto select, I can move it around. Now, you notice how the triangle, wherever I move it, it covers up the hearts. Well, that's because it is at the top of the layers panel. That the top basically means it's in front. The bottom means it's in back. In order for me to rearrange things, I have to drag and reorder a layer so that the green triangle could be in back of one of the hearts, like that. Now, I'm going to go and get the blue circle, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click and drag that over. Now, notice where the blue heart showed up, or sorry, the blue circle showed up in the layer stack. It's right here in the middle. And that's because the last thing I had selected was that pink heart. So the blue circle went just above that. Okay, but the same thing, click and drag on it, and I can move it around. I can rearrange layers so that it sits behind the triangle and the hearts, and I can move those around as such. So now that we have some shapes on here, I want to select one of my hearts, and I want to resize it. There are different ways to do this. The main easiest way is to go to the Edit menu, Transform, and Scale. I do want you to know that the keyboard shortcut to do this is Control-T. Control-T. If I hit Scale, now we have these control handles that allow us to resize it in width or height or both. Okay? And when you have reached a size that you are satisfied with, you can either double click to commit to the size, or you can hit the check mark up here in the options. If you don't like what you've done, you can do this to cancel the transformation. And of course, you can always go back to your history panel to undo. So I'm going to move that out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to select my other heart. I'm going to show you another method now. Again, I'm going to Control-T or Edit Transform. This time, I'm going to hold my Shift key down. And if I hold my Shift key down while I drag a corner, notice that it grows proportionally. That means that as I increase the width, the height also increases by the same ratio. Okay? Now, there's another way to do that without holding down the Shift key, and that is up here in our options. It's this little lock here between the width and the height. If I click on it, then I don't have to hold my Shift key, and it grows again proportionally width to height. I'll double click to commit to that transformation, and I'm going to grab my third heart. This time, instead of doing a scale, I am going to do skew. So let me go back to that menu real quick just so you can see. There's lots of different options here. You can rotate, distort, change the perspective, warp, flip, horizontal, vertical, whatever. So I'm just showing you something different. But the skew will allow you to drag one side at a time. So this way I can actually create kind of a completely different shape heart than what I originally started with by dragging those handles. And then I can check it to commit to the transformation. Okay, so now that we have a few different things changed or transformed, I want to go ahead and select the circle. I want to transform that a little bit as well. Again, I want to keep the width and the height in proportion, so I can either hold my Shift key or I can use that lock in the options, and I think that looks just about right. I can also recolor these from my layers panel. So if I want this one to change color, notice that I double clicked on the little thumbnail image here in the layers panel. It brought up my color picker. Here is that rainbow of colors that I can choose from. So I can choose a nice bright pink and click OK. I can go to the little one here, double click on it. Maybe I want to make that one red. And then this one here, I can make a lovely shade of aqua teal-y blue. There we go. Now, with all this done, and I'm going to resize that a little bit so you can see all my layers. Again, I have not used any other tool from my toolbar other than my Move tool. I can select all of these items on my document by clicking on either the top or the bottom, and then I can hold Shift down and click on the other side. Notice how that selects all of them. Okay, so click, Shift click, and it selected everything in the middle. If I come up here to my options, again, my Move tool is selected, you can see these alignment tools. And here I have the align vertically. So this would be align the top edge, align vertical center, align bottom edge. So I'm going to choose to align the vertical center. And notice how they all changed. They're all different sizes, but here they are. The next group is horizontal. So we have left edge, horizontal center, and right edge. I'm going to choose horizontal center on that as well. So basically now all of these shapes are layered one on top of the other. So here then I can reorder my shapes so that the biggest one is in back, the smallest one is in front, and maybe I even, I accidentally clicked on the eyeball, which hid my triangle, by the way. I can go to my triangle and I can resize it a little bit. Maybe I want that to be behind that heart. Okay, that does mean though that I'm going to have to go back and align again since I resize things. Okay, but now we want to go ahead and save. There are so many other things that you can do in Photoshop with the layers, which you'll cover later. Make sure you're saving this to your desktop with your period number, underscore your last name, underscore name of the file, which is shapes. It's going to be a Photoshop PSD. hit save. Then I want you to save as a JPEG. Default options.